You're full of it. You're full of it, Evan.
Yes. I'm full of something. You know what? I'm full of enthusiasm for being here. That's all I can say. Truth be told.
That was lame.
That's the main thing we want. That's the primary thing we want.
Well, hey everybody. It's me, Michael Osinski.
And it's also Tyler Esselman.
And you are listening to or watching This One Goes to 11.
This One Goes to 11, our podcast, where each week we invite someone into our virtual living room to make their case for what they believe is a perfect album.
So perfect that 10 out of 10 just isn't good enough.
Happy Sunday, Michael. We can't keep meeting like this.
We're revealing all of our secrets. Now people don't think that we're actually recording this like Tuesday at 3:00 in the morning on the East Coast, so that it's like going live. You know,
I think people aren't under any delusions in that respect.
I don't know,
Maybe they
Tyler.
are.
People, if I've learned one thing in my 46 years, it's that people are stupid. So.
And that's the only thing he's learned.
Yep, that's it.
The only thing. He's still learning the rest.
Also, I didn't intentionally wear the band t-shirt to the concert. But I am wearing the band t-shirt at the concert.
Look at you.
I'm wearing,
You're getting ahead of the roast. You're getting ahead of you're self-roasting in an effort to undercut the power of the roast that you knew was coming.
I'm taking control of the situation. Plus, I know that our guest will find any opportunity to roast us no matter what. So now I've only I've laid the bait for him. And what is his name, Tyler? Who are we talking to today?
We're talking to All-Star. This One Goes to 11 guest, Evan Sawdey.
That's all I could ask for. I'm just so happy to be Fred to your Kate and Cindy. Which one either of you are, I'll let you figure out. But I'm just so excited about it. Truth be told,
that's a good question.
That is a really, really, really good question, actually. And so you're bringing us right into it. I think.
Why do you get to be Fred? Like, why can't I be Fred? I want to be Fred.
Nobody knows what we're talking about, guys.
It really comes down to who best says, "There goes a narwhal." Let's be real.
I think Evan might take the cake on that one, Michael.
Also, Michael, I have you saved in my phone as Shiny Happy People, so I think that goes down. It counts for something too. So,
then I guess I must be Kate Pearson then.
I think you and I are Kate and Cindy. I think. Okay, but we're saying all these words, Evan. Tell our listeners, they've seen you do your magic many, many times on this podcast, but we've given you the opportunity to bring another album before the tribunal this season, an album that came out before you were born. Tell us, what album is that?
The album that I picked is, I think, one that is considered by many to be a classic, but it is that rare record where the more that time goes on and the more you engage with it, the more it reveals about itself to you, the listener, which I think is a rare and special and noted gift. That is why I'm talking about, from 1979, the debut album from the B-52's. That's right. The B-52's, the eponymous stunner, most famous for the inclusion of the song Rock Lobster, which obviously went on to have a wonderful and viral life about it. Yeah. Quite frankly, the thing I'm most excited about more than anything else is hearing what y'all's listening reactions to were, because I wasn't sure, as you've gone through and as you've done this entire season of records that were, Patti Smith horses and other things that were happening, many, many decades prior to us, gracing the world with our presence. I just wanted to know what your engagement level with B-52's was prior to listening to it and how that changed.
It's an excellent question. And I think one that I probably took for granted. I think I probably take the B-52's a little bit for granted is my overall feeling. What would you say, Michael?
My primary exposure to them was from Cosmic Thing, of course, because with Love Shack and Rome, there was that moment where they were very big and very popular, and I knew of the song Rock Lobster, but this was my first time actually diving into the history of the band and giving the debut album a really serious listen. And it was interesting to do that considering fairly recently I had taught a class in queer theater and cinema and did all sorts of queer theory stuff. And I got some queer things to say about this album when we get to it. So
God love you. God love you. Well, okay. So before we get to all those queer things, Evan, we have to assume that maybe some of our listeners have also taken the B-52's for granted a little bit like me, and that perhaps they don't have any context over why this album is important, who the hell these artists are. You just named a bunch of names in our little preamble. They don't know who those individuals are. And so we have a convenient feature to get those people caught up. Michael, what's that feature called?
That feature is called The Beginner's Guide to the B-52's, the B-52's in 60 seconds.
60 seconds alone. That's all we get.
Mm-hmm. Not 52.
No.
No.
We can't rush it.
No. Those 8 seconds are really where the magic happens in these little recaps.
You can tell when he gets in the pocket. Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's where we speed up just a little bit. It's where we speed up when we're like, did I actually do this? Did I actually, or were my eyes too big for my stomach? The last 8 seconds. But anyway, I'm doing it today, Evan. You get a chance to assess my job.
It's your last one of the season. So
yes, it is.
I double checked. I thought for a second that I was supposed to do this week's, and I'm glad I looked. And then I realized the big one that I have to do at the end of the season. So I'll just jangle that carrot there for our listeners.
Yeah, we've been teasing that, but everyone's like, "Oh, thank God, Michael's doing it for the rest of the season. I don't need to listen to any more Tyler schlock." You know.
Stop being self-effacing.
Okay, all right, fair enough.
Let's see what chat has to say. Oh, wow, I see W's all across the board. That's incredible. So,
all right.
Thanks, chat.
I feel pretty good about this one. I think this one's going to be fun. So, Michael, do you have my timer ready?
Oh, I got it ready. 3, 2, 1, go.
We were on the pod. Everyone had headphones. Then a plane flew by, covered in hairspray. It wasn't a bomber. It was the B-52's. That's right. The B-52's were one of the first bands from Athens, Georgia to kickstart that fine city's rock-soaked renaissance in the late 70s and early 80s. Originally composed of Fred Schneider, Kate Pearson, Cindy Wilson, her brother Ricky Wilson, and Keith Strickland, the band can trace its origin all the way back to a fateful night at the Chinese restaurant Hunan in Athens and a shared flaming volcano drink that fueled their first proper jam session. The volcano is a fitting totem of what would become the band's signature flavor of 50s, 60s style rock-inflected new wave.
Seconds.
Chances are the call and response and tight harmonies of Pearson and Cindy Wilson, or the mischievous Sprechgesang of Schneider, will be familiar to you, and their infectious, campy energy soon proved destined for a far greater audience than Athens alone. Their self-titled debut spawned some of their foundational hits. Did I run out? Damn.
Oh, yeah, you ran out. Yeah.
Holy shit.
We really knew those 8 seconds, didn't we?
Yeah, I really did.
well, finish it. Finish it. Get through it.
Finish the thought. Yeah.
Their self-titled foundational hits including Rock Lobster, as we mentioned, and it earned the admiration of no less than one Mr. John Lennon. The band would be rocked by the death of Ricky Wilson from AIDS in 1985, but rebounded to keep shaking ass and cement themselves as the signature sound of the 80s in due time. That was it.
All right. All right, Evan.
Good.
Well, how do you do?
Pull no punches.
At the end of the day, I'll be honest there. I think you could have gotten it out a little bit more, but I really appreciate the Fred Schneider commitment overall. I'm gonna give you 4 out of 5 Plymouth satellites for that. I think that's fair. I think that's the least I could do in that situation. I am delighted by it too. Oh, okay. So yes.
See, that's it. The goal is to delight the guest. That's the so if that's
yes.
If that happens,
and I am delighted. Then again, just being around you two always delights me. So let's just be real with ourselves here. So,
let's state we've been very excited to have you back. This is a very fitting kind of band for us to talk about with you. Of all of our guests, you have some of the most wide-ranging music taste, some of the most specific language that you talk about. I mean, you are a music writer extraordinaire, in my opinion, and your year-end lists over the last few years have really been a source of a lot of music for me. So in case that hasn't been stated to you recently, let me just say it again, okay? But that kind of leads us to our first question. We've missed you, and we want to hear a little bit about what music's doing for you right now. In this moment, like how's music playing a part in your life these days?
Fascinating question. It's weird because I think we had mentioned this maybe last time potentially, but there is a study done that when people hit age 35, typically they tend to calcify their tastes. They tend to have a harder time accepting in new media in some of stuff. Like, there's always going to be a new show. Coworkers love a new show, in case you weren't aware. Coworkers love a new show. But for the most part, when it comes to music, you're at some point you're just going to switch back over to the playlist, and for people to have that adventurous spirit, like there will be the occasional, oh, have you heard of Geese? You got to hear Geese. There'll be those occasional moments that come up here and there, but like to still be in a state of constant accepting of music is a little bit difficult. My husband, the incredible Taryn, he is very much locked into very much a K-pop groove for the past couple of years, and it's been like he accepts other Western music there, but that's very much been his diet. So for me personally, it's the thing where I go in and out. I'm trying the best I can to keep up. I listen to all the promos that come my way, but overall, like, I just tend to be, every year we go through a little bit of radical change. I think I've told you all about some of the radical changes I've gone through this past year. And it's the kind of thing where I am so much more interested and focused on community. I'm getting exposed to so much more hyperpop and things like that. But at the end of the day, for me, the power of the playlist will reign supreme. Mr. Michael Ozinski knows a little bit of what I'm talking about. But for me, this year more than anything else, I feel like music has become more of a social lubricant, more of a connecting tool on here, because it is still my fundamental belief that when I got into music the way I did, if you just know even a little bit about country, if you know a little bit about hard rock, a little bit about, crazy EDM techno, there will always be that one person that will want to speak about that. And I do feel like it's one thing to be a tourist in that world. Sometimes that's all you can be, but ultimately to have those connections in music is still powerful. This last year, I've expanded my friend list to absolutely unbelievable, crazy new highs. I've had so many life-changing experiences, and music has still been a fundamental connecting tool throughout all of that. So for me, it's odd. I don't voraciously intake new music as much as I have, but I still feel like it's been more of a functional social tool for me in the best and most positive and wonderful of ways.
So the Yardbarker year-end list was the one that I go to. I have been going to. Was that the only proper year-end list that you had from this past year, Evan?
That's the one that I wrote myself. I also wrote for Pop Matters. I think that's all I did this last year, but like I had a couple blurbs, here and there over there. But the Yardbarker one was one I'd written entirely by myself, which is fun, writing 20,000 words on deadline, let me tell you. But we do it. We do it every year, baby.
I mean, there's so many lists to digest. I will say though that the thing that like came through from something that Evan that you had written was you made me aware that a Doves album existed, that a new Doves album existed, which was my favorite album of last year, honestly, for reasons which I got into in our year-end episode. But yeah, I mean, it's funny. Like I think about like whenever I read something that you've written, Evan, I think about whether I would ever want to get into that sort of space and the way, I mean, it's great that like Tyler and I have this and we talk about music with people, but to actually like sit down and commit to writing things about it, which we did in a previous season. We wrote some little things and put up some little mini episodes. But I mean, I have to give you credit for the amount of music that you must have to consume to still love it. Is insane to me, because I think that if I were told like, oh no, you have to listen to this whatever album and write something about it, I would immediately be a contrarian and think like, well, if you're going to tell me I have to listen to it, then it's going to get 5 out of 10 stars. So like it's I guess I just appreciate that about you, that you're still able to love music even though you are writing about it and have to be critical about it and have to listen to so much of it.
Well, and I understand where you come from, but I think at the end of the day, what is most powerful in this world, less so than a critical voice, is what you're doing on this pod, which is pure enthusiasm. Because at the end of the day, when it comes to, like, you don't have to have the most nuanced critical opinion on something. If someone loves something so deeply and passionately, and they just have any sort of platform to express that, like, it becomes infectious. It becomes overriding on here. And that's why when you bring in a guest to be like, I want to talk about not this random album, album. I don't want you to talk about whatever Jack Harlow's doing this week. I want you to talk about an album that was fundamental and powerful in your life. Like there are those times when I'm sure, and not to be all behind the scenes tea about it here. I'm sure there's times where like, we're doing this album, sure. But then like, because they get into it and because they find those like nuances and like excitement about it, and you see how it just had an effect on their lives, like it shifts your opinion on it a little bit. And like the power of enthusiasm is something that I really feel like I've been clicking in with a little bit more, because I was just the other day, I was going through my list of like favorite albums of all time. I've had to revise it, had to shuffle a couple things around on there just to make room for things and some more recent items potentially. But like when I had to go back over my year-end list that I had done for Up Rocks, and I was just like, some of these I don't necessarily always remember, like my number 5 from 2021, Heavy Metal Greasy Love. Who knows where that came from? But at the same time, it's like, that was the name of the album. Look it up. But like when I looked at the number ones, like the number ones almost every single time are just like, that was a foundational thing for me. And I hope the very best I could do is just convey some of that enthusiasm across the way, because that will still be a connective tissue for people, even if they don't have with kindness, like the intellect or the words or the vocabulary to always express that sheer enthusiasm and joy will always, I feel like, be much more of a social glue than anything else for some of that.
You couldn't agree more that it is like it's like healthier for us to focus on things that people like, as opposed to things that people really dislike. Obviously those things come up in a dialectical, right? In a dialectical way. And it's a conversation. So we end up talking about things relative to other pieces. So it's part of the process, but like starting from that point, you're so right that it is. And we appreciate that you appreciate that, because it's fun for us still,
But how dare you mention Jack Harlow? I will say that. Like, why invoke that
on the
person's
B-52's pod of all things? We're bringing up Jack Harlow. Yeah.
Well,
my dad kind of likes Jack Harlow. So there's something that we're going to talk to you about this, Dad. Go ahead, Michael. Go ahead.
Oh my God. Well, okay. You mentioned B-52's.
He came from Planet Claire.
Let's get into it. So, Evan, tell us, how did you discover this particular album? Since you weren't alive when it came out, how was it? How did it enter your world? I wasn't even alive. I missed it by a few months. So,
how dare you out me as not an ageless being born out of time and dust? Unbelievable.
You're gonna have to prove that to us. All right. So I'm making the case
solid
against.
Evidence in your favor that you are that, but.
Yes, I know. The carbon dating came back inconclusive. But overall, like, I remember, like, I think it was the kind of thing where I think I heard Rock Lobster way back in the day. I didn't really have, like, a super strong connection to it. However, I do remember I had to go to a summer camp once, and my stepmom, she, like, had, like, in order to make sure I didn't feel too lonely, she had, like, these 7 envelopes that she sent with me, one to be opened each day, and each one was, like a letter or just, like, a keepsake or something like that, just to say, like, your family's still here. I was super young at the time, so just, like, those kinds of things on there. And on the very last one was a tape, because that's, back in the day, of the B-52's debut album. And that later translated into the first concert that I ever went to, which was the Royal Crown Revue opening for the Pretenders, opening for the B-52's. So that was way, way, way back in the day. That is, 1990 something or rather, when that all happened. But that was
you
the
got
thing.
Cred.
Yeah. So,
that's your first concert? My God.
That's a good one. Yeah. The Pretenders, too.
And so the Pretenders were fine. But, like, more importantly, were there. I remember I even, like, took notes during the concert because, like, it was my first concert. I didn't know what to do, but I wanted to, like, write down, like, just, like, things that I liked and enjoyed. And, like, I recognized Royal Crown Revue. They're the live band that played during The Mask, during all the Copacabana Club sequences. Like, that's who they were. So, like, I had to, like, yes, exactly. Who knows where they are now? Probably in the same touring circuit that the Cherry Poppin' Daddies are in. By the way, quick side tangent. We really allowed the Cherry Poppin' Daddies, a group with the name of the Cherry Poppin' Daddies, to be popular. We really let that happen, didn't we?
I think this is not the first time you've referenced this on this podcast. I think in a previous appearance you brought this up. So clearly you have an axe to grind with the swing revival.
Let me pull up my Zoot Suit Riot tattoo I have real quick. Hold on, let me get it.
Yeah, okay.
Plus, let's agree that if there were a fight between Cherry Poppin' Daddies and Squirrel Nut Zippers win. I'm sorry.
No, Brian Setzer would win. Let's be so real with ourselves.
Well,
why are we even
I guess so. I guess so. Why are we talking about this? Get back to the B-52's, Evan.
So, yeah, long story short, I remember liking the album at the time. It was fun. It was quirky. I actually take that back. I do think because this is just completely reawakened in me. My first exposure to them actually wasn't through that. The very first exposure I had, because back in the day, I didn't have cable or anything else like that. And I believe you've mentioned this before, Michael. I may have even brought this up before, but there used to be a UHF music video call-in station called The Box. And it's the kind of thing where, for me, it always came through staticky. But from like 96 to like 1999, it was like the way I ingested music. It was the way where basically through like kind of a light layer of staticky fuzz across the TV, people could call in and type in a 3-digit code and get 99-cent charge to have a music video played on the TV. And then it was things like, this is when Eminem started breaking out. You could have All Saints and Anastasia and, Aaliyah, all the A's, like all these different like groups like came together. But like that was my exposure. I used to have tapes that I would use to like just tape music videos off of it. And I just like have loads of them because like that's just how, some of the stuff ended up like falling to the wayside of history. Rest in peace, 1,000 Clowns with your one-off hit, I'm not the greatest rapper in the world, to all the way going back to, like other stuff that truly did become iconic. And so for me, I remember there was the music video for Debbie, which was the song that the B-52's had for their greatest hits album. It was a song that was in tribute to Debbie Harry. It was a fun thought. Something about it just really connected with me. No one ever ordered it. On rare occasions, I was able to find it. For some reason, that video just had such a deep impact on me. And as from there, I got their greatest hits album. I kind of listened all the way straight through, but I didn't really have context on it. The one that stood out for me was 52 Girls. 52 Girls I thought was a fucking banger beyond all worlds. So, I mean, let's be so real with ourselves. Can I name you every girl that is mentioned in there? I absolutely cannot. However, it is still like just like kind of a post-punky kind of vibe. Like it was, and I think that's the thing where as years have gone on, I enjoyed the greatest hits. I eventually got the album, and I thought that the album was good. But as I reapproached it and revisited it multiple times over the years, it just very gradually took on greater power to me. Some random night, kind of like listening, stoned or whatever, and then all of a sudden, Dance This Mess Around came on, and just something about it just connected in such a primal and visceral way that is so hard to describe. When I did for Pop Matters, I wanted a breakdown of like track by track, like how I thought about the record, and it was fine. It was honestly not my best writing, and I try to wonder why wasn't it my best writing. And this last year, I got to do a review of the box set of like their Warner and Reprise years, and in it, I kind of started to rediscover that holy fuck, this album is a great album, and it is also a radical queer text. And it is the kind of thing where just very carefully and very gradually, like, it's just like, how the fuck did I not pick up on some of this stuff before? Because at times it is downright transgressive. And that is not what you would think would be the vibe for a record that ends with a drunken, rowdy cover of Downtown by Petula Clark. Like, it is the kind of thing where, like, it has so many layers to it. Almost every single song contained within this record is outside of alluring and quirky and weird and interesting. You can digest it at the level of just quirky, dumb, stupid fun. You could digest it at the level of pure pop craftsmanship. You can digest it at the level of just personal identity and like so many layers of just reflection and just outspokenness. And like there's like so many different things contained in the seemingly innocuous, kitschy little record that it continues to surprise me to this day. And in my opinion, that the best albums that you ever have in your life never remain static. They're always changing and evolving with you.
Oh God. Okay. There's so much there.
I'm sorry. I have a lot to say.
It's great. It's great. So tell me, so let's drop this in. What's the keystone? And maybe this is a question to both of you. What is the keystone to this album as a queer text in your words? Like what unlocked that? What unlocked that for you?
I mean, Evan, I read that article, and I was actually going to take you to a little bit of task today in this episode because I think that the keystone is the song that you thought is the weakest song on the entire album, which I think maybe musically it's a little squidgy, which is there's a moon in the sky called The Moon. Just that part in the middle, the lyrics, I jotted them down. I mean, they're so silly, they're so crazy, like throughout this whole thing. And then suddenly this song, like everything sort of drops out a little bit. And he sings, if you're in outer space, don't feel out of place because there are thousands of others like you. And then he repeats, others like you, others like you. And by like eliminating the first half of the sentence, it's not only saying like, hey, we're bizarre and there's a lot of other people, like your community is out there, you will find us, and we like you. Like that for me is the keystone. I don't want to steal your thunder there, Evan, but what do you think?
Yeah, how do you respond?
That is also the song where if you're lucky, you can ride a golden meteorite, and if you're unlucky, you could have a mouthful of hot red kryptonite, which can be taken in a lot of different ways.
No,
there's also a song here called
Only One Way.
Only One Way. Same with
Way.
Lava at the same time, which as a kid, I was like, this is fun. Oh, go ahead, please.
No, I was going to say, we're going to talk about Lava later. Lava has my favorite moment on the whole album. I want to wait and talk about it later. You talk. No, there's a moment that's so good. It's so good. Sorry.
Okay. For me,
go in on it.
For me, Dance This Mess Around, and listen, you're going to ask me the question here a little bit. I'm jumping ahead of the game. What is my pick from this track for this record? It is Dance This Mess Around, and let me get into it a little bit as to why. I know I'm a little bit out of order on this.
That's fine.
But this is a song where, how does the song hit the middle? How does it hit in the middle? You can do all 16 dances. You do the chukaloo, do the aqua velva, do the camel walk. You could like, it's goofy, it's fun, shimmy, shimmy. You know, like there's just so many just like quirky little moments. There's the shouted chorus of I'm not no Limburger. How does it start? How does that fucking song start? It starts with, do you remember when you were my man? Do you remember when you held my hand? Walk, talk in the name of love before you break my heart. Like, I think it over, roll it over in my head. Like, it's just like, what is happening? What is this intense psychodrama that is happening before us of just either a pined lost love? And then when you actually go up to them and start screaming, why won't you dance with me? I'm not no Limburger. I'm not no Limburger cheese. There's this radical disconnect that happens within the lyrics where you're just like, okay, what just happened over here? Why do we go from like actually serious and emotional and involved into quirk, into craziness? And I think this is where the key of the album comes in for me. This is the point where if you are queer, then you are someone who has probably had to have awkward moments throughout your life. I don't think there's ever been, and maybe I'm generalizing, and if I am, just come from me in the comments, it's fine. I don't think there's ever been a queer person who's been confident throughout their entire life. I think that as a queer person, one of the things you have to do is that you ultimately have to hide a secret within yourself. And because of that, that leads to awkwardness. Some of this could just be attributed to just general social awkwardness. If you're going to scream at someone, why won't you dance with me? I'm not no Limburger. What are you talking about there? But the entirety of this record always hides behind the fact that there's, haha, I'm jokey, I'm fun, I'm quirky, I'm odd. There's a sense of otherness that exists within the lyrics that when you actually parse through, there's a genuine heart here. And this is where I feel like the other records from B-52's after this don't really have that same degree. There's hints and moments of it over here. But on this record, there is a quiet little bit of pain that is hiding behind some of these lines. And I think as queer people, we've always had to go about our lives and mask ourselves as being oddballs or quirky. There's so many people that we've had in our lives. They're just like, by the way, I'm gay. Okay, well, we've known for years because you've been wearing a trench coat that's painted pink in the high school for a while. I think some of it was kind of obvious to some of us, when I started telling people this last year, like, oh, by the way, I think I'm a furry now. A lot of people are like, okay, like it wasn't like a big deal. They're just like, yeah, that kind of tracks, doesn't it? Really? I'm like, oh, fuck, does it really? Is it with the signs all there? Like
in the best way, in the best possible way.
Exactly. And so it's the kind of thing where it's like, I think that while there are lines, like even in Rock Lobster, boys in bikinis, girls in surfboard, which at its surface seems like, oh, well, what a wacky world they're painting over there. Then you look at it and like, kind of radical a little bit, especially for 1979. This is right after the peace and love era. This is still a little bit transgressive. And I feel like the strengths of this album are that no matter what and I would argue in almost every single track, in almost every single song, there is this sense of just quiet, almost defeated romanticism that is dressed up in these fun, punchy guitars and these quirky little lines. Even Hero Worship near the end is a song where it's just like, Hero Worship. What's happening in the song? They're dying. They're literally dead. You're having to revive them through mouth resuscitation, which I had to look up because I can't understand it when they vocalize it because it's just mouth to mouth. It's just like, it's just so wacky and wild. So in my opinion, the queerness from this album comes from the fact that the entirety of the record is putting on this kitschy front that is very easy to dismiss as nothing more than quirky party pop. And then when you start digging into it, as you do with almost anyone else in your world, as quirky and funny and maybe hiding a little something behind them, there's some real heart and artistry there. So that is kind of why for me, and I've had this revelation about this album fairly recently, it is so much more profound and radical in that sense, personally.
Is that what camp does writ large?
I was waiting for someone to use the C word. Like,
I mean, I tried to. I think I only used it once in the 60-second intro purposefully, because I think it's reductive in many ways, right? It's kind of like genre, but I think if we're talking about it from this angle, and we're thinking about how this fits into the constellation of camp from that era, maybe is that what it is? Is it's like kind of giving you this exaggerated view on otherness. But also romanticism. I like this underlying idea of romanticism that kind of feels like a key element to almost punk as well. You know, it's not a cynical thing. It's more of a romantic. What were you going to say, Michael?
Well, no, when you said punk, I was like, yeah, there's almost like, you might have even written about this too, Evan. There's like a punk production to this album. Like it sounds like sounds like they had their all their sliders set to, whatever the punk band who had recorded an album beforehand came right in and they just left it as it was. I don't know. I have lots of things to say about camp, and I actually don't find it reductive because if you've read Susan Sontag's, essay, you know that you can say camp, but when you say it, it takes her like 27 pages to fully explain what it is. So it's almost a word that kind of cracks things open. Not the least of which being the fact that I think it evolved from queer people needing a secret language and a secret way of letting each other know, hey, I'm one of you. Like that's how I see the campness within this. I don't know, Evan, what do you got?
I mean, to speak on it, like at the end of the day, queer people are always looking for a community, but also some of that means fighting for your value on here. And for a lot of people, if they're not the hottest people in the world, if they're not going to be the jocks of the football team, which if you're queer, strong case you probably aren't, but that's not exclusive there. So where do you find your strength and where do you find your power and where do you find your community? It's through sometimes being the funny person, being the wackadoo, being the oddball. And so I think that is where camp is very much a disguise. And at the end of the day, when you look at something like Rock Lobster, it's quirky, it's fun, but it's accepted. Like that's the thing where as much as it's like this jokey joke kind of world over here, these wackadoos are just going to be wackadoos, aren't they? But like that's that kind of thing where it still brings people around you. People will still hover towards that because it's so confident in what it does. It's so confidently weird and quirky and strange. And then it's the thing where the more time you spend with it, the more you kind of realize the power that they still have as musicians too. Because at the end of the day, let's be so real with ourselves. Like you could have the hottest, sexiest bod in the world or whatever, but talent is so fucking sexy. When you have that one person, when you go to a karaoke night and they just nail the vocal on that one song, you're just like, oh my God, I had no idea. Like it's that there's those weird things that kind of come out here. And I remember when we went to the concert, because we listened to the greatest hits album that I had started out with Planet Claire. And my dad was always like, that's a synth. We go into concert and it's actually both a synth and Kate and Cindy vocalizing at the same time, but like in almost complete harmony with each other. It's just like, fuck. Like the thing is like, that is such a next level production thing. Island Records founder Chris Blackwell produced this record, and his other things that he produced were fucking Bob Marley and the Wailers and Grace Jones. So just like this this complete splay of styles over here, but like this punk rocky vibe that he has like this post-punk kind of almost, if you want to say, like kind of again that weird connection they always had with REM, not just being from Athens, but having that dry guitar sound that's just so predominant within their wheelhouse. There's just texturally, this album is so fascinating by itself. There's such incredible musicianship, but I will say that camp, as much as it is like wild and quirky and things like that, it is still accepted. It is still funny enough to bring you in, but it's also weird enough to not you fully dismiss it as jokey. This isn't, and with kindness, because he's obviously a very dear close to my heart. This is the Weird Al album. This is something that has more lasting power because they seem to be getting at something with it. They're existing in their own universe. And I think at the end of the day, the power of them embracing this camp, embracing this quirk, is that people will come to be a moth drawn to a flame if you're creating a universe on here. And they absolutely did that with this record, because you name a fucking band that sounded like this prior to 1979, and I cannot. That's how I feel about it.
All right, we're at about that time where we should probably let the listeners who are able to do so listen to a song. Evan, can you just restate for those listeners, what have you chosen as the standout track from the album?
For those who fast forwarded 20 minutes through me speaking, let me remind you, and for the record, I don't blame you at all. I go on for a while. My standout track for this incredible album, of which there are many, is for me the emotional linchpin of this record, which is Dance This Mess Around.
All right. If you're listening and or watching on YouTube, you're about to hear Dance This Mess Around. So go give it a listen and join us on the other side. Ha-cha-cha.